Greetings from Los Angeles, California. Mike coming at you from AT Astro. Hit that like and subscribe button, and information will be posted down at the bottom in case you would care to schedule a consultation with yours truly. So in many ways, composite charts are sort of like the final word on whether or not a relationship is going to work out for the worse or for the better. Composite charts are midpoint charts that take the planetary midpoints of each person's planets, and it creates a individual chart of its own. A single chart is the chart of the relationship, and it is the final go-to for determining whether a relationship of any nature is going to end up manifesting positive things for the people involved, or if it's going to just turn into a nightmarish hell of a relationship. The big difference between synastry and composite charts is synastry aspects, you can really work difficult ones out. Like my last video on the 5 worst synastry aspects, those can all be dealt with in a way that's healthy, as long as you just understand where each person's coming from and understanding the effect that you have on the other person. Composite charts are a little bit different. Composite chart is what the relationship is, what the relationship becomes, what the two energies that both people bring to the table create at the end of the day. It's the final product. So I'm going to be giving you the top 5 worst composite chart aspects, and what's different about this video from the last videos is these are deal breakers. You can't really overcome them. If I see these aspects pop up in a composite chart reading between two individuals, I'm going to tell them big thumbs down from me, don't get involved. Take that as you will. There are a lot of people that have this belief that any negative can be turned into a positive within astrologies, and that's all good and fine, especially when you're looking at particular aspects within your own natal chart. But composite charts do not follow this rule. They do not follow this logic. You can't just take an entity's energy and switch it, because there are more factors at play than just each person's individual nature. 1. Sun in conjunct Jupiter in the composite chart. This one's really disappointing to find in a composite chart between two individuals. When you see this particular aspect popping up, and it's rare, what it's pointing to is a fundamental lack of vision for the future, or complete differences in vision for the future. You can have the most wonderful synastry in the world. Y'all can have the highest amount of sexual attraction. Y'all can have a ton of fun together. But if the vision that you two both have for the future of yourself, your family, your partner, your dreams, if they aren't in alignment, long-term growth really isn't possible. It's a fun fling, but to actually build a life with somebody and to build something more than the one-bedroom apartment you're living in together prior to buying a house or whatever, it's just not going to amount to much. Like later on down the line, you will eventually find out over time that your view of how you want your life to be, what good life is to you, isn't going to be the same as your partner's, and that's a big problem. So that one is a really important one to look out for, and it's also really rare because an inconjunct aspect has such a small margin of error in terms of orb allowance. 2. This one's a doozy. Sun square Pluto in the composite chart. Sun conjunct Pluto is not that bad. Sun opposite Pluto is bad but doable. Sun square Pluto is one of the really bad ones. You really can't get all around this one. The only way to really deal with a difficult composite chart aspect is just acceptance. You have to just accept that this is the way that you and the other person, the energies that come up between the two of y'all whenever y'all form an actual relationship. And when you see the Sun square Pluto in the composite chart, the ego, the Sun in the composite chart is the actual, what the relationship views itself as. What is this relationship? What house it's falling in makes it, where y'all both feel this relationship pops up in the world. And when Pluto is in hard aspect to it, Pluto is constantly pushing change upon what the relationship is. And a lot of times, one person will end up in the position of the Sun, and then the other person will end up in the Pluto position. And it's just these two people are sitting there just trying to change each other constantly. A lot of power games, a lot of issues related to control, a lot of arguing. And the thing about it, too, is it's a very attractive aspect. It's very intense, it's very passionate, but it is so destructive. Like, these two people that have this aspect can very well get in a position to where they may love each other and care about each other, but they're literally trying to rip each other's faces off. Like, that is not healthy. It is. I've been in several relationships, and I've been in family environments where I've had this aspect pop up. I've seen it pop up in people's relationships that I've done consultations for. It's not pretty. It's something that you really, it's extremely difficult to build a healthy, stable relationship. A lot of resentment builds up over time, and it is just not, in my opinion, worth draining your energy over. 3. Sun square Saturn. Sun square Saturn is a really bad one because Saturn is all about the types of commitments you have to make. Like, how hard are you willing to work to make this relationship work? How strong is your commitment, and how strong is your resolve to make, to build a solid foundation between you and the other person at hand? And when the sun comes into an aspect of tension between what the relationship intrinsically is and what the relationship has to deal with and overcome, it becomes a game of like, what are you willing to sacrifice to make that relationship work? What of yourself are you willing to give up for the other person? And so what ends up happening is one person ends up having to give up their dreams. And one person has to end up giving up their sense of self in favor of the other. The lifestyle differences are completely different. And a lot of times you see this in relationships where people, they really do like being around each other, but there's just something about the way those people's lifestyles mesh that one person ends up having to sublimate what they want for what the other person wants. And it's not even like one person's pushing the other person, it just ends up that way. It's difficult it has a very amorphous way of bringing itself into play. Just one person's got to really just give up everything for the other. Is that really a type of relationship that you want to be in? How much do you really love that person? Are you willing to give up your entire view of what you want to do with your own life in favor of another person? Choice is definitely up to you with that one. 4. Mars square Neptune in the composite chart. This one's tricky because not only is it bringing up themes related to like sexual idealization, but just due to the nature of Neptune in itself, deception can become a big issue. Neptune is not really ideal in heavy, copious amounts in a composite chart to begin with, but of all of the possible configurations involving Neptune, I think Mars square Neptune is probably one of the worst. So it's really, really sexy, so people tend to want to be in relationships with these individuals, at least at the onset. There's a lot of sexual attraction. It's very steamy. The two people view each other as being like the physical embodiment of sexiness and romanticism. But the issue comes about when the actual visceral effects of this aspect start to manifest themselves outside of the bedroom. These two people tend to weaken each other. They tend to not be able to bring open conflict into the fray. They can't honestly resolve their problems. They can't really be honest with each other, even when they're angry. So passive-aggressive behavior, outright deception, backstabbing is a problem that can definitely come up. It's just not pretty. I've been involved in it. I've seen it in other people's charts as well. The biggest issue with this, just like all Neptune aspects, is it just seems so wonderful. But unfortunately, as time goes on, the reality of what this aspect brings out between two people is very far from what you would expect, and it's usually a big letdown. And who wants to be in a relationship where two people intrinsically weaken each other? I mean, if a relationship can't be a whole that is greater than the sum of two separate equals, then why are we even in it? Why don't you just go do everything on your own? 5. Saturn square the ascendant. This one's not as bad as the other ones, but there's definitely a lack of warmth between both people when you have this aspect. It's a relationship where like public displays of PDA are just not gonna happen. There is such a sense of duty between two people to look a certain way and act a certain way in public. It doesn't come off as being very warm. They tend to not have a lot of pictures within their house, not a lot of family photographs, not a lot of holding hands, not a lot of being all over each other. It's just it's not loveless, but it really, really, really feels like you're supposed to act like this person is, your lawfully betrothed mannequin that you're just supposed to just act a certain way around. It's just not something that I would really want to be involved in. Some people really dig that type of thing, especially if they feel like there's a lot of obligations placed upon them by their career or by society to look and act a certain way. Yeah, I can totally get behind looking like y'all are a completely loveless, frigid couple. But for the most part, No, not for me, not for my Leo moon, not for anybody who has any semblance of self-respect. If this was helpful, I do offer consultations, as I said at the beginning of the video. There will be information posted down at the bottom, and until next time, guys.